All right, welcome in everyone. We are super excited to be here. My name's Goldie from Goalie Guild Gaming and the Goalie Guild, and I'm being joined today by Revvy, G3 club member, and the one and only John Lowell from Between Two Pipes and big part of Goalie Guild Gaming as well. And we are here today to share a new feature at Goalie Guild Gaming called the G3 Profiler. And what this new feature is all about is really just breaking down the style and the performance of our club members so that all of you e-goalies out there can learn from some of the top goalies in NHL esports and just learn a little bit more about what makes them unique and how we break down different plays. And of course, as you know, what we're all about is kind of blending real life goaltending analysis with the esports goaltending analysis. And so that's what this profiler is all about. Revvy has stepped up to the plate. He's the first goalie from our club that's going to be profiled here. So what we're going to do, we're going to break down his build. We're going to talk about his strengths. We're going to talk about some areas that he's working on improving. And of course, go through the build and things like that and just give you guys some great feedback on, what makes Revvy unique as an esports goalie. So Rev, thanks for stepping up to the plate. I know this isn't the easiest thing to do because you're kind of the first guy here, but thanks so much for doing this. And John Lowe, of course, thanks for joining us as well.
Yeah, no, thank you for
Yeah,
having me. Excited to try this out and see where we go.
yeah. Thanks for having me as well. I'm happy to be here and with Revvy too. What a great goalie in the goalie community. I love the guy.
Yeah, it's awesome. We're so pumped to just finally have this all come together. It's been a slow crawl to not only getting Goalie Guild Gaming's new website up and running, but to finally be able to produce content on a little bit more consistent basis. I know John Lowell and I did a couple of these breakdown videos in the past. They were really well received, but we wanted to take it up a notch by doing a full profiler on our club members, and Revy's the first. So here we go. We're going to dive right into it. Revvy, we've got your date of birth here. We've got an email address. We've got this awesome promo graphic from that 2 vs 2 tournament, which was pretty recently held by Northern Arena. And we've also listed your top three strengths, a couple of those quote unquote gray areas where we're going to be talking about areas that you're working on improving. And then we also want to talk a little bit about your journey so that a lot of the e-goalies out there can learn about your background and how you got to where you are right now. So why don't we start there with a little bit of background? Why don't you just talk a little bit about, how you got to this point as one of the top e-goalies in NHL esports and some of the work you've been doing, quote unquote, behind the scenes to get here.
Yeah, no, I thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. I mean, for me starting out, I've been playing goalie for NHL since it came out back in 08 and 09 for that mode. But in terms of competitive play, that probably started around, I'd probably say around NHL 16, NHL 17, like when I was going from high school to college. Before then, I was pretty much just playing club, like with friends from high school. I wasn't taking the game too seriously. I didn't really discover the leagues like LG until around 16 or 17. So that's when I started making the transition into a little more structure and competitive hockey. From there, it was pretty much just like rising through the ranks. So start in the CHL, work your way up through the AHL, and then the NHL. And so after a while, you get to know some of the guys. You get your name out there, and people start to recognize who you are. So
Mm.
that's kind of where I start to make connections with people and eventually learn about the ever growing world of NHL esports. So that's where I've been really focused on for the past, I'd say, two games, NHL 19, and right now in NHL 20, I've been really focusing solely on the esports side of things.
Nice. And just for again for our viewers and all the other goalies out there, like what's your schedule look like when it comes to grinding NHL 20? Like how many hours a day or a week? What's that look like for you?
So the blessing of the curse of being home right now is I have a whole lot of time on my hands. So it's kind of up to me how I kind of choose to allocate that time.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, I've been able to produce a schedule for myself pretty much every single day that consists of mainly working out in real life to just keep my body in shape, stay healthy, stay active, and then also spending time in the game, practicing some skills that I may not have as much time to practice otherwise, where normally you're just kind of thrown into the game and it's kind of you practice by doing, where now I've been able to set aside a few hours like during the day before I play later in the evening to just focus on certain skills, work on my eyes, work on just those like fine movements that will help me out in those stressful situations.
Yep, that's awesome to hear. And we always like to advocate physical fitness for an esports athlete. You got to have it. There he is sipping the Gatorade bottle just like he'd be in a real game. And man, that's awesome. So yeah, that's great background, and it's great to hear you've got, I think we're all on that boat. We're working from home, or we've got all this extra time on our hands, and having that structure is extremely important. So let's get into what everyone loves to talk about, builds, right? And it's pretty funny because we got this awesome feature that John Lowell kind of came up with, where we're actually going to share the builds that goalies in our club are using and put that out on social media. So again, other goalies can learn and tinker and try different builds and see what they can learn. But it's funny because it seems like we're always in a constant state of change. Those builds that we rely on, maybe it works for a few months and then you find something that works a little better, or you just feel different and you want to try something new and you like it for a little while. And so it's this constant kind of revolving door with the builds. But we're going to talk specifically about the build that we see on screen here, because this is the one that you published, I think, about a month ago. But maybe talk a little bit about this build particularly, and then maybe some adjustments you've made over the past month and what you're currently rocking, because I know that's a big question that we see in the Discord servers every single day, is what builds guys are using. So why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about your specific build?
Yeah, so for my build, honestly, before this build that you see on the screen right now, I was pretty much dead set on the hybrid build. That was kind of always my go-to. Like mentally, I thought it was a nice balance in between stand up and butterfly. It just kind of gave me a little peace of mind. But actually, one of our other fellow G3 members, Shekel, I think he's one of the only, at least top guys right now, who's been running a butterfly build pretty exclusively. So he's the guy that actually kind of turned me on to trying out the butterfly build, which when I used this build, it felt pretty good, honestly. I mean, 6'5" is pretty much I think a standard for most guys. It's good to have that little bit of extra reach and take up a little more space in the net. For me, 199 was kind of the reason I chose that is it gave me a good blend for when I look at my stat sheet, a good blend of both recovery and rebound control and also speed. So I wasn't whipping all over the place, but I wasn't also super sluggish either. I felt like it gave me kind of a good balance where I had control of my movements, but it wasn't too slow or too fast. For me, that's why I also buffed up. I made my first straight recovery too, because recovery and rebound control are kind of my two traits that I take the most pride in. I want those to be as high as I can get them. I also had download 2 just because with this build, I was also trying to experiment with not using the left trigger or the manual butterfly as often, and seeing how much I could rely on the animations to do a little bit of the legwork for me, and seeing how I could link that. So I had the down low 2 to kind of help boost those stats a little bit. And then I also did cross crease master as my specialty, just because I feel like I want a little bit of an added boost for when I was making those pushes across the crease.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like that cross crease master is a key one, because if you look at real life goaltending, everything's about getting the puck to travel across the Royal Road. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the Royal Road, that's literally just that imaginary line that goes right down the middle of the net. And when pucks cross that Royal Road, statistics prove and the analytics prove that goal percentage goes way up. So those cross crease plays are obviously the toughest for a goaltender. You have to have so much lateral movement. You've got to be tracking the puck extremely well. And when the puck's in tight like that, depending on the situation, there can be more space. So that seems like a pretty solid build. John, is there anything you'd like to add about Revvy's build here? Anything that sticks out to you?
No, honestly, I think builds are so personal and unique to each individual goaltender that I think you're going to find just a bit of tiny variation between the builds and between each goalie. But at the end of the day, if it works for you, then you stick with it. And I think you'll see a lot of goalies making small little tweaks here and there just because they may get burned on a certain play like one week, and it might happen frequently. But when you zoom out and you look at the big picture, at least in my opinion, they all end up kind of playing very similarly. As long as you're, like Revvy said, in that 6'5" range, I think you'll notice it plays fairly similarly over the course of a year.
Yeah, it's really good advice too, to just kind of preach patience a little bit, because we can get caught, and this is similar for real goalies too. You can get caught trying to change things too often, just because you give up one or two bad goals, and some of the times those goals aren't even your fault, right? It's like a glitch or whatever the case may be, whether it's in the game or in real life, and things happen, and it's really good to stick to your guns and stick with what works. But I think it's also important too, like we see with Revvy and a lot of the top guys, especially in our G3 club, still having that flexibility to try different things. And whether you're doing that in the off season or you're doing scrims with the boys, being able to try different builds and try different stances, even though we know that stances don't really make a difference, it can make you feel a little bit different. If you feel a little bit different, you might perform a little bit different. So that's a lot of the fun that we have in these conversations, and I see them every single day, especially in the Between the Pipes Discord server, guys asking about different stances and stuff like that. It's really cool. But I think Revvy, you obviously have a lot of experience. You know what works for you, and it's awesome that you're sharing this with all the other e-goalies out there, because I know again, that's just one of the most popular and most often discussed topics when it comes to e-goaltending. So thanks for sharing a little bit of that. Now we're going to get into your strengths, and your first strength that you shared with us is the economy of movement, which is great to see, because that is clearly an important task for any goalie at any level. And here's where we get into the clips. So this is the fun part, and we're going to do our best to get through as many clips as possible. Sometimes what happens is we start to talk about one specific little clip, and then we miss everything else. So we'll do our best to kind of breeze through some of these, but there's a lot of good pointers in here and a lot of good things to go through. So Rev, what I'll do is I'll play through this clip one time, and then the second time I play through it, you can kind of talk over about why the economy of movement is one of your strengths, and why you really like to rely on that trait so much. So here we go. Play it through once. There we go. Nice save. So talk a little bit about why the economy of movement is one of your strengths.
So for me, starting out, especially before I got playing competitive and playing against these guys that can make some really high IQ plays, I had a pretty bad tendency of kind of flying around the crease, whether I was standing up and doing T pushes all over the place, or if I was in my butterfly and I would just constantly be shuffling and pushing back and forth. I've been working on kind of like trying to tone that down. And something I've been kind of trying to tell myself, like a little mantra, is that my eyes should be moving more than my thumb should be. So for me, that's just trying to track the puck as much as I can, and then move once I either know what the play is going to be, or I have a pretty educated guess based off of what's going on in front of me. So in this play right now, I actually kind of got this from watching John's videos about kind of depth and positioning the net based on where the puck is. So on that shot where you have the guy shooting from the point, for me, just because there was a couple guys there in front where it may have got tipped, I wanted to kind of stand my ground, not try to come out too far, kind of have a nice good place in the net where I'm not too far forward, not too far back. And I think I achieved that pretty well there. I didn't have any let me see. We get one tip, or we get two? Oh, that second guy tried to tip it. Yeah. So we got that one tip, and luckily I got down the butterfly in time, and I was able to kick it out. But you can see that therefore there he comes across the crease, picks it up. So I just try to slide over, nothing too extreme, too forceful, too aggressive. And he passes back to the other guy who's cutting across the slot. So I come from the butterfly on my post, and I kind of make a quick little movement out, just kind of gain a little bit of depth, just in case he tries to shoot to the center or back to my blocker side there. So luckily I was able to get that and smother the rebound there.
Nice. Yep, there's a lot of good things to this save. First of all, like you definitely are dealing with a lot of traffic. That puck could be doing all kinds of crazy things as it finally gets through to you. But definitely in terms of your positioning and your depth, like you're set before that puck leaves the stick blade, which I think is the most important part. There's no pre-shot movement. It looks like you got a pretty wide stance. Which, that would be a discussion in real life in terms of having that kind of a wide stance that deep, because that wide stance could lead to bad rebounds off that far side pad. And there's definitely a rebound, but you follow it really well. So I think that's pretty key. And yeah, I think in terms of like staying within the pipes, staying within the 6x4, you definitely do a really good job of that. You don't overslide. You attach to your post pretty solidly, and then like you said, it's a shoulder lean back to the middle, and there's no over movement there. You don't do really a full recovery either, and then good job pouncing on the rebound. So definitely a lot of good things in that clip. John, anything you see?
Yeah, so what I'm seeing is a lot of great control down in the butterfly, which is really, really difficult to do this year. In NHL 20, they added this, I wouldn't call it a feature, but just a little gameplay tweak where on a shot, your goalie will automatically drop down to butterfly and stay down there for a split second longer than in previous years, which tends to cause people to, when they follow a rebound, to overslide just because they're used to holding butterfly manually on their own in previous years, and then this year it does it for you. So you kind of get this big slide effect. And Revvy does a really good job of locking onto his post in the first movement. And then what's even more impressive is in that second shot, the last shot he faces, he doesn't fly back across his crease because he sees a pass. He just nudges off the post and he's squared up to the puck. It's actually a pretty good technical save there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good job staying within the 4x6. That's your economy of movement, and that's one of your biggest strengths. So good job. That's awesome. Especially through the traffic on that initial shot, you're down, and again, no pre-shot movement, which I think is the most important part. Okay, let's go to the second clip here. So again, I'll play it through one time. There's that pass across the Royal Road. I'll let you break this one down, buddy.
Yeah, so luckily with this one, I guess the blessing and the curse is that it's not as in tight. So there's a little more space. Guys are a little spread out more. So one perk of that for me is that I can kind of get an idea of where the pass may be going just because their team is more spread out and so are my guys. So when the guy there at the point passes it down to the guy on the half wall there, something that I'm working on too is just not over committing to that short side too much. Like I get down there just in case he wants to try to throw it on and test me there. I'll kind of honor that. But as I see him start to cut across the dot there and start to cut towards the middle, I can see that guy on the other circle there wide open for a shot. So just starting to track it just in case he shoots it before getting off that pass. I still try to stay as much to my short side as I can until I realize that he's about to pass it. So you see that guy wind up for a good one-time slapper there, and I get over, flashy old leather, and make a nice, good save.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's a lot of things we would be discussing here if this was a real-life clip, and a lot of it has to do with the rotation of your hips when this pass actually comes off the stick blade. And this is a tough, tricky play because he definitely has a shooting lane. The guy who's carrying the puck right now has got a shooting lane in a pretty good scoring position, right? And there's a guy on the doorstep, so you really have to be honest on this puck. You cannot cheat. And as it comes off the stick blade, like, I'm sure this is mostly the animation, but you definitely fall behind a little bit. So you see how the puck's just at the face-off circle. You're a little bit behind, but the rotation that your goalie has here, this rotation right here, is huge. Because that allows you to square up. And again, economy of movement, it's not a big push to get over. It may look flashy because you kind of do the split save there and you've got the nice windmill. But the rotation is what's huge for me. Even though you're a little bit behind this puck as the pass is coming across the Royal Road, you really do a good job of rotating those hips and getting square to that one-timer. So that's a nice save for sure. Johnny, anything you want to add here?
Not too much. I think it's a great save and a great read. In this game, your goalie rotates following the puck for you. You don't have control over that. So I think we find virtual goalies fall behind the play quite a bit, and sometimes that's just the way to play. So you don't overcommit. I just think it's a great save, Revvy. Nice job.
Nice. That's the insight I'm here for, John Lowell, is to know that that's how the mechanics of the game work, because in real life it's different. You definitely wouldn't want to be falling behind on a play like this, but it's tough because you have to honor the puck carrier as he's coming right down the pipes, right down the middle. And that's why we talk about the Royal Road plays. When those pucks cross, especially from that distance, with a guy winding up, that's like an Ovechkin sweet spot right there. That's a tough read to make, but that is a sick save. You keep the glove in front of you too, so you're not really reaching back too much either. So that's a sick save. All right.
I guess I got one thing to add to that too. Just knowing through Rev's experience in the game, knowing that the goalie rotates for him, when that guy cuts into the middle and he does have a wide open shot, it takes a lot of discipline not to nudge slightly to the left. And let's say he did shoot that, Revvy, like you said, Revvy's in great position to save that puck. But you'll see a lot of forwards take that shot often, and goalies will just inch to the left, and it's enough to pull them out of position and get short-sided there. So just good for you, Revvy, for staying in position there and not pulling too far away off that post.
Yeah. Yep, that's awesome. If you get caught cheating, you're going to get burned.
Oh, yeah.
So it's almost like you have to default to honoring and respecting the puck carrier. But overall, great save. Love to see the animation. Love the little split save. That's nice. That's nice. Good job. All right. So now we move on. The next strength. This is cool because this isn't necessarily breaking down clips. This is a little bit more of how you prepare and how you actually perform outside of the actual NHL 20 game. So why don't you talk a little bit about your practice habits there?
Yeah, so for me, I actually like this little image that we have pulled up here. I remember trying to get it from one of John's videos because this definitely helps me with that whole idea of the economy of movement thing. So for me, it's a mixture of what I do usually in the morning after I work out is I'll kind of either a mix of looking at VODs of actually other top goalies and just kind of seeing what they do in certain situations and kind of trying to compare that to what I would do and seeing and trying out their style if that's something that I'm not doing currently and seeing if that works my style of play. And then something else I do is I just try to work on which is something that I think, especially in NHL esports, is kind of overlooked, is the idea of warming up your eyes and your hands and stuff like that. Because I know in some more professional esports, especially where you're playing mouse and keyboard, you realize just how vital a quick mouse click or the quick move of a wrist can be. Where in NHL, I mean, you're pretty much relying on quick thumbs, quick trigger fingers, and good eye tracking. So for me, what I do pretty much every time before I get on is I'll spend about, say, 20 minutes work on just warming up all my fingers, making sure my wrists are good. I'll do some eye exercises. So right here on the screen here, you can see what we call a concentration grid.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much it's a giant grid, numbers 0 through 99. And the idea is to kind of click them in ascending order, just kind of see how fast you can do it, attach yourself to a number and be able to click it in short sequence. So I've been doing that for, July? So I've been doing it for about, I'd say 3 or 4 months now. And I've been kind of logging my times each day for what time of day I'm doing it and what time I get as a result. So kind of seeing if I can notice any trends there. And I've definitely made some improvements in how quick and how focused I can be when doing that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the concentration grids is something that we talk about a lot at G3 because we're seeing NHL goaltenders work on concentration grids, whether it's on game day, before they hit the ice, or it's on off days or practice days or whatever. It's a really simple exercise. And like Revvy said, it's literally just being able to focus and concentrate and get through 0-0 all the way to 99 as quickly as possible, and all the numbers are scattered in no type of consistent order. So it's cool. You can go on a website, you can do this. It'll time you, it'll log your times, and it's really just clicking as fast as possible. But I really love what you kind of came up here on the left side of the image. We talk about visual acuity skills and vision training and visual intelligence, and vision is like one of the real big hot button training topics when it comes to elite level goaltending in real life. And I know it holds true for esports, no matter what game you're playing. The visual acuity system is extremely important. So why don't you talk a little bit about your idea here for blocking out part of the screen?
Yeah, so for me, like, I guess in a way I almost kind of took it too from Game Guitar Hero. There's like a mode, like a hardcore mode, where as you're playing more, the track goes away. So it's kind of more a reaction time and how quickly you can realize what the notes are coming and when to hit them. So that I kind of took that principle here and trying to think of ways that I could kind of work on my vision, my reaction time in practice. So I pretty much just took a piece of cardboard, folded it up, threw it over my monitor, and I go into practice mode and pretty much. And I think this still image, even if it's a little blurry, gives like a good example of having to track the puck going from a guy on one side of the divide and kind of in that blank space, and that's a pretty thick piece of cardboard there. So kind of tracking that as much as you can before they make that cross, and then while they're crossing through that kind of dead space in your mind, just knowing, okay, this is where they're going, and just kind of being able to react to that in time.
Yeah, this is awesome because I think a big part of goaltending success is being able to read patterns. And when you can challenge yourself and you don't have all of the information that you normally have, it's kind of like those swivel vision goggles where part of the vision is blocked out. That's one challenge. And then they also have the strobe glasses, like the Nike strobe glasses, where it shutters on and off and it takes away part of your vision. Everything goes black for a split second. And that strobe effect helps you improve your pattern recognition and your ability to track and focus. So I think that's a sick idea, man. That's the kind of innovation and creativity we're looking for ways to improve your skill by being able to fill in the gaps like that. So that's pretty awesome. Anything else you want to share about, your preparation or your practice habits that we didn't cover already?
I mean, I just think like right now in the state of NHL where we don't have a dedicated EASHL practice mode where you can kind of go in with your team and practice and warm up in a non-game setting before a game. I think whether it's a shootout, whether it's practice mode, I think it's good for goalies to kind of just get a little time in before they go into a game, whether it's a normal league game playing with friends or a tournament with money on the line. It's, I think, definitely good to be able to warm up your eyes, warm up your hands so you can go in and play with a little more confidence.
Awesome. John, you want to add anything before we move on?
Yeah, I just think this is awesome, and I think Revvy's probably one of the only, if not the only, goalie doing this type of training before games and every day. The NHL community, as much as there's lots of great competitive leagues and stuff like that, they don't always take that training part seriously. They're all about playing games, and like Revvy said, there's no dedicated online practice mode where you can get on the ice with your teammates and just mess around, just the six of you. So the fact that Revvy's doing this again is awesome. I don't think anyone else is doing that. I know skaters tend to warm up by playing other modes like online versus or hut, but goalies, we have shootouts and then we have ESHL, and that's all we've got. And this practice mode offline is great. And not to take anything away from what Revvy's doing, because it's awesome and it works for him. It's just a different experience playing against the computer and the AI players. So we're really lacking a mode where goalies can get that that human element in the practice. For me personally, I like to rewatch streams of other teams to see how they score and what plays they try to run. But again, anything is better than nothing right now, especially for goalies, since there's that lack of accessibility to practice mode.
Yeah, really good points there. And I think, again, the similarities with real life goaltending are just numerous because pre-scouting at the NHL level or any professional level, even college level, is absolutely huge. Goalies are doing more and more of it because that, again, is going to help with pattern recognition. It's going to help you understand tendencies. It's going to make your life a whole lot easier because you just go into that game with a little bit more confidence, knowing that you know what to expect from your opponents in certain situations. So this is great to hear. Like I said, that's why Revvy's in the club, right? Because he's doing things that other goalies aren't doing, and this is what we want to preach to the NHL goaltending community: is take some time to do some, instill some of these practice habits into your routine. I know it's not always easy. It's hard to stay disciplined. Like John said, it's mostly just having fun and playing with your friends. But at the same time, if you want to be one of the best and you want to work your way up the different leagues and play in these big name tournaments that are being hosted by different NHL teams, these type of things that Revvy is doing will give you an edge. It will help separate you from the rest of the pack. So it's definitely something that we preach at G3, and we're always looking for different ways to try and manipulate what we have to work with. Like John said, there's not a lot of options out there to train. I know I lean on the practice simulator because that's all I've got. And that's helping me at least understand the mechanics a little bit when I have the time to dive in. And that's a luxury, I think. And hopefully for future games, there's more of those options available for goalies to train instead of just having to rely on the AI. So that's awesome, Revvy. I'm a huge fan of the concentration grids. Anything that's going to improve visual acuity, I'm all about it. So I love to see it. And do you know what your fastest time is? Just out of curiosity. Just curious.
Yeah, let's take a look at, because I actually log it down like a little notebook here.
Nice.
So I think I used to, when I was first doing it, I used to log 5 minutes, a little over 5 minutes. I think my fastest time was either a couple days ago. I think, my fastest time currently, it looks like, is 3 minutes and 14 seconds.
That's pretty good. That's pretty high end. I mean, there's a couple of websites, there's a couple of articles on NHL.com that talk about Carter Hart and a couple other goalies that use these concentration grids, and their times are ridiculous. Carter Hart can do it, I think, in 2.5 minutes or something wild like that. And I've done this a ton too, and I know how tough it can be. You get stuck on one number and you lose sight of everything else. And sometimes I like to actually step back and try and absorb as many of the numbers as I can, as opposed to getting that narrow focus where you try and just dial it in on one little square there. But awesome stuff, man. Love to see it. Again, that's what we're here to preach, is just, having the discipline and having the ability to do some training outside of just playing the game makes such a huge difference to your ability to perform. All right, third strength, adaptability. This is another one I love. Let's go and play the first clip here. All right, what do you got for us?
So I know the term adaptability, maybe right off the start, might seem a little vague, but for me, when I talk about adaptability, I use it in two ways. You can use it both within the long term, for me, example, when you're changing your builds over a season and stuff like that, changing up your play style. And then also even within the game itself, depending on what team you're playing or what kind of play style they're bringing in that particular game. So for the short term, in this example here, prior to playing this team, I was kind of struggling with not really with my post play in particular. So with them, I was trying to do a good job about honoring my short side a bit better, about whether it's hugging the post standing up or standing up and overlapping my skate just over it. But that was something for me, adapting that in the game, realizing that they were really trying to test me short side, even if they weren't going to shoot there, but just knowing that I was going to hold my ground and not budge. So for me, that was an example of just kind of adapting based off of the team I was playing in that particular game.
Yep, cool. And I think being able to make those in-game reads is huge. That's one of the things that we have to be able to do, is be able to adapt in situations like that. And other teams are doing it all the time. They're reading the goaltender. They're trying to see where the strengths and weaknesses are, what tendencies they have. And having a little bit of that unpredictability is really important for a goaltender. So being able to switch up some of the patterns that you visualize in a game. So if a team does notice that you're dropping into your RVH a little bit too early, or you're a little bit uncomfortable getting in and out of it, they definitely try to exploit that. And so it's always this constant like tug of war between what players are trying to make you do and what you're showing. And I think that adaptability is huge. So if post play is one of those areas, that's good. John, you got anything here, or should we keep rolling on?
Let's keep rolling. I think you guys hit all those points there.
Yep. Yeah, we don't want to extend this too far out, so I'll let Revvy kind of break down this clip. That was a nice save through some traffic. What do you got for us here?
So for this one, it was just noticing like how to really play like a tip. So in this situation, we had number 91, I believe that's Bones, world-renowned Bones.
There you go.
Coming up right in front of me there for a tip right there in front of the net. So for me, this is something like I do in real life too. It's like trying to get up as close as you can to that guy that's potentially going to tip the puck. So regardless of where he tips it, whether he tips it to my right, tips it to my left, tips it between the legs, I am as close to that potential tip as I can be, so I can cut off any angles so that the puck doesn't get too far away from me.
Yeah, and same sort of thing here that we talked about earlier. I won't spend too much time on it, but it's awesome that the game automatically will rotate you to get on angle. You're moving as this shot comes off the stick blade, but I think the most important thing is that you see the release. So even though there's traffic, your ability to pick up the release probably helps you react to this awesome, that's a really good tip, and that's a really nice compact butterfly save. Even though there's a little bit of pre-shot movement, again, seeing the release allows you to read that trajectory. And on that tip, like you said, you're pretty tight to the shooter. You're about mid-depth in your crease, right? So that's a 6 save. Nice, solid, compact butterfly. Good stuff. John, anything there?
No, well played there, Revvy. And just for the people watching who don't know, in this game, if a skater is further away from the net, like the further they are away from the net when they deflect the puck, the better the chance of that puck going in. You just seem to get more pad animations, and you stick your leg out more often when the puck's being deflected from further away. So as Revvy does a really good job here, he gets up in tight and closes that gap. And like you said, he's moving, so that will affect his ability to make the save. But if he gets his chest right up in their grill, the puck can't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you shut that down. That's good box control. We talk about that all the time. And that's a pretty solid animation. And a nice pad slide over to the post too in recovery. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, we'll keep rolling. Let's see, what do we got next? I think we get into gray areas. All right, so gray areas. Here we go. It's not about just talking about weaknesses, but we want to talk about areas of concern, or areas where, it's a real like thin line between doing it right and doing it wrong, and it depends on a lot of different things. And that's why we call it a gray area, because it's not necessarily that it's a weakness of yours, but it's an area of maybe concern, or an area that you're just trying to continually improve upon. So that first kind of category for you is short side. We'll play this through real quick. That's tricky for sure. What do you got for us?
So in this clip in particular, this is back when I was also trying to be pretty much as minimalist as possible with my movements, for better or for worse, and I was trying to play almost exclusively inside that crease there. So the issue that I had here is that once he makes that pass to that guy there, instead of me maybe just cutting my skate out just a little bit further to the left there, I just kind of stayed pretty inside the post there, and just in case maybe he did pass it across to that guy in the slot. But as you can see, I didn't really make too much commitment one way or the other, so I ended up getting burned short side.
It's insane how patient you are on this play. Like, this is a this guy's coming in with speed. The eventual puck carrier, his head is down, which makes it tough because you really don't know what he's going to do. And he could go back. I mean, he does go backhand here. It looks like he's going to go backhand. You still hold your ground, I think really the only thing you possibly could have done here is do a post lean. Because it looks like, whether it's the animation or whatever the case may be, you pull off of it. Whether that's because the skate interferes with the post, which we know that's a whole glitch of an issue, as you can see right here. Like, there's a lot going on here, so maybe I'll let John kind of chime in on what he sees, what he thinks.
Yeah, so the logical thing in your head is to do the post lean, and I really wish that was the play, because that's how it was built and intended for those purposes in these types of plays, but it's just not the way it works out, and you only get that knowledge through playing this game enough, and the only way he's probably going to have a realistic shot of saving this puck is if he overplays the post by moving left, but there's still a really good chance of it going in. You know, standing up, you've got a lot of holes. You know, he could have dropped the butterfly, but again, he's selling out on that short side. And it's really tough to do when the defender is maybe not in the best position. He's kind of ducking out of the play. One key, I guess, for people watching here is the forward who gets the puck is a right-handed shot on the right-hand side of the ice. And in this game, those short side shots are deadly from either left-handed left wingers or right-handed right wingers. They have the angle naturally, and they can find holes a lot easier. So my best advice is when you see that, you just have to honor short side and hope your team can bail you out, or make a really, really good read if the guy makes a pass. Mm-hmm. But right-handed right winger in this play, it's so tough. You have to overcommit so hard to save it.
Yeah, there's some options here too, like John mentioned, the overlap. You can take a really short step out and get that left skate outside of the post, so there is no interference. So if you just go into a full butterfly, that puck's not going around you or through you whatsoever. But I just love the patience here. I think you talk about economy of movement. You mentioned that. You definitely see it here. So that's definitely one of those gray areas we talk about for sure. All right, let's go to the next one. Same one. Whoops. Here we go. Okay, what do you got?
So for this one, this was a tricky one too, because this was still in the time where I was relying a little more heavily on my animations to make saves for me, and just hopefully my positioning would make up the difference there. So in this case, the guy's cutting around. You think he's either, before he makes that move to commit short side, he's either cutting all the way around, maybe do a wrap or throw it out front, or as he ends up doing there, he skates around just before he goes behind the net, he throws it right in front to that guy there. So for me, it's kind of working on that issue of sometimes knowing when to just stay up in that scenario, or if I should just, at what point do I think I should drop into the butterfly, whether he's going to skate all the way around and I can butterfly slide over to cover the far side, or if he's going to do what he did in this clip and just feed it right out to that guy just right on the doorstep there.
Yeah, this is tough. I mean, first thing I'd say is you probably want to get paddle down, RVH paddle down, and with a slight lean forward, you cut that pass off if it's along the ice, which it looks like it is. So in that situation in real life, that I would actually say this is on the goalie, because you should be able to cut this off with a paddle down, right? Your defenseman, we can save that discussion for a later time. Not sure what's going on there with all the guys around you, but yeah, I feel like when it's in this tight, whether he's going around or he's trying to jam the puck out in front, you would probably want to get down early on this one and be able to use that paddle down to either extend out with the paddle and cut that off, or just hold your short side in the RVH, and if he does go around, you just bump across. But I understand the game has its limits. John, what do you think?
this is such a tough play, and I would never, I don't think, blame a goalie for letting this one in. Just knowing like how in tight that pass is, and the shovel animation the skater gets is incredibly good this year. Paddle down is an interesting point. It's something that we typically don't use as virtual goaltenders, just because it doesn't function as smoothly as you'd like it to. It's a pretty, once you get down into it, it's hard to get out of it. Now, I think you might be right though. Like, I think he might save that and paddle down. Now, that is not my first instinct, nor do I know if it would work, just because of if, let's say, he goes around behind the net, like, can you recover in time to the post just because that animation is so slow? I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's a really interesting point that I think if anyone in the goalie lab is listening in my Discord, it would be worth testing out. The only other thing, Revvy, again, this is hindsight, so we're watching this clip after the fact. We're not in the heat of the moment. He's on his forehand, and so he doesn't have the backhand wraparound, which we know in this game. The animation's a lot faster, so you might be able to drop down into butterfly and not have to worry about sliding across to save a really quick wraparound on the backhand. So that might be the only other move, but honestly, it's just a tough play in this game. A really tough play.
Yeah, I'm glad. I mean, this is why I love having these discussions, because I know what we would teach in real life. But if it doesn't work in the game because either the animation's not there or it's janky and it's not clean, of course you're not going to use it. So I totally get that. And yeah, I know we've talked about the whole quote-unquote bumping technique in previous discussions, so I don't think we need to spend too much time talking about it here. Guys can go back on your YouTube channel and check out that discussion, but that's something we know we would love to see for NHL 21 is that bumping animation, and being able to push, cleanly into and off of your post, because being able to work in and out of your post is so huge in today's game. Just for time purposes, let's go through the post play ones really quick. John and I won't give much feedback, but Rev, we'll let you say a few things about post play, because we could talk about post play for hours. I think that could be its own show, because that's such a huge part of the game now. We'll play through this one first. Okay, break it down, buddy.
Yeah, so for me, this was probably in the phase where I was transitioning from never touching standing post hug again, which, I mean, especially in this game, standing post hug, depending on where the puck is, where people are, it can be pretty tough to get out of. So, like, in this case, you see the guy does a nice pass between his legs there, and he throws it to his other forward there who's trailing behind our two players right there, and he gets it through. And so luckily for me, I was still able, despite kind of being pretty committed to that short side, I was able to recover quick enough across. So the reason that this is kind of just a gray area is because in some cases, I'm trying to work between those two extremes of only overlapping over the post, or only like just standing next to the post, or incorporating the standing post hug. So I'm trying to still work on that even today. Work on just when to standing post hug and when to just overlap, especially in that scenario where there is a good pass across the crease.
I'll play through one more time after the long dump in. Okay. I think one more. You want to break that one down real quick?
So for this one, I think this may be the opposite, or the thing that I was trying to talk about in that goal before, where the guy was going to potentially cut behind the net and he ended up throwing into his guy in front. Where here, I feel like this is what I probably should have done in that pass scenario, where the guy skates in the corner, he wins the puck battle against our guy. He starts cutting around behind the net and then you see their forwards start to cut back towards the slot in case he does pass it, which he does end up doing. Where in that other clip, I was still standing up at this point, but you can see here I'm butterfly. I'm not leaning on the post, but I have my skate right up against the post in case he tries to sneak it in there short side, or I'm still enough in the middle of my net in case he tries to, if he does pick up this pass, cut all the way across and get a far side shot on.
Yeah, this is a tough one too. I think this is really similar to that last one. It's just on the opposite side, different play obviously, but again, this is where I lean on John to talk about the animations, and I don't want to get too much into it, but it's hard not to mention it because I see it and it's so clear. But again, this is a situation where your whole body would be hugging that post. You would be in a tight RVH. Your stick blade would be turned over, and as this puck comes through that blue paint just slightly, actually it doesn't. It's really close. Like, that's the tough decision to make. Do you come off your post to try and stretch out and reach out and deflect that? Do you let it go so that you can stay square to the puck? That's a tough decision to make for any goalie in any play. But I would think, again, you've got the opportunity to maybe get a piece of that and deflect it. That's a judgment call for every goalie. Depends. But that's a tough one. You can see why these are gray areas.
Yeah, for me on here, I'll just hop in here. That's how I would have played it, and that's how I suggest you would play that. It looks like if that winger gets the puck on his stick, it's still going to go in far side. So again, he beats your defenseman and your team, and he creates that lane for himself. I think, does Red get a piece of that? He might get a piece of that. That's a nice little play by your center there. But I mean, that's a great read. You're not on your post. If he did hug his post fully, like into the RVH or a post lean, there's no chance he has any time to get off the post. The post feels kind of sticky in some certain situations, and this is definitely one of those times.
There we go. Good stuff. Okay. We're going to wrap this up. The gray area behind the net, let's do one real quick. We got a few more questions for you, and then we'll wrap this up since we're getting close to the hour. Top of the hour here. I feel like...
Yeah, so...
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I was going to say, I feel like behind the net and post play is gray areas for a lot of top guys.
Yeah, and it's funny just how closely, connected they can be, too. So, in this case, now that I think about what John said, we're noticing what hand the guy is and figuring out what animation they make it if they go for that wrap. You realize that even though I'm in the butterfly and I can probably make a quick slide across, this guy, he picks up the puck in stride. He's on his backhand. He gets that very quick, very lethal backhand wrap. So for me, it's just knowing when someone's behind the net, when to stand up based off of who's around and what it looks like he's going to do with it, or when to go down my butterfly and wait to see what he's going to do.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. The full recovery, I think, is one of those things we could discuss. Again, obviously in real life, you would never get back to both feet here. You would stay down. But if that's a janky animation or that's just the way the mechanics work for the game, you're limited in what you can do. So again, I think that proves your point. You really got to understand the animations for the shooters and what hand they are too.
I'll just jump in here again. Definitely, once he's down in butterfly, I mean, again, we're looking at this in hindsight, but definitely don't stand up. Your quickest way to that opposite post is just a little push, and I know you know that. It's just one of those things where you kind of kick yourself. You're like, why did I let go of the trigger for 1 second, And you stand up, and you almost recover in time, but I almost guarantee if you had just slid over, you would have got there in time. And again, like you said, Goldie, post play and behind the net, it's the toughest part of this game for goalies at the highest level. A lot of top teams play behind the net, and the post animations aren't the best, and the movement when you're behind the net isn't the best. So it's really tough, and I don't think there's one answer of how to do it properly right now.
Yeah, and I think that again just goes to prove like understanding your opponent. If that's part of their game plan, you say a lot of teams like to play behind the net. Knowing who's out on the ice and who you're playing against and some of their tendencies, I think, is something that's going to give you an edge and help you in situations like this. So, F minus for that celebration, whoever that was. All right, awesome. So we're gonna wrap this up. As you can see, we can really get into it when we start talking about a lot of